They came carrying wreaths, not weapons, not placards calling for anyone's removal. Wreaths, the kind you lay at the feet of the dead to say, "We remember you, you mattered, you will not be erased." Over 65 families, representing over 65 people killed by security forces during the June 25th, 2024 protest, walked through the streets of Nairobi on June 25th, 2026, flanked by opposition leaders, asking for nothing more than the right to reach the steps of parliament and lay those wreaths down.
Tunaomba tunarepresent wale wengine wako mbali. Tunaomba mturuhusu tu tuweke maua peke yake tunaenda zetu.
They never got there. What unfolded instead was a confrontation that tells you everything you need to know about where Kenya stands 2 years after one of the most significant political events in its modern history. Police Teargas, a sit-in on Parliament Road, a former Chief Justice hustled away by security, and a senior police official standing at a microphone telling the press with a straight face, and while all of this was happening, that there were no roadblocks and nobody was being stopped. This is the story of June 25th, 2026, and it begins at Serena Hotel. The morning held the feel of something deliberately organized and deliberately calm. The families of those killed in the 2024 protest gathered early, held a meeting, and then began their procession. Flanking them, opposition leaders Martha Karua, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo and Eugene Malo, among others. The march moved slowly and deliberately down Kenyatta Avenue, heading toward Parliament precincts. The destination always stated clearly. They wanted to lay wreaths at the parliamentary steps in memory of the more than 65 people who died at the hands of police during the anti-finance bill protest. Before the march began, Kalonzo addressed the press. He did not mince words. He criticized the government directly over the roadblocks that had been erected across the city since the early morning hours, saying they had blocked ordinary Kenyans from going about their normal duties. It was a pointed observation. The roadblocks were not a response to any violence that had occurred. They were a preemptive measure erected before anything happened against people who had announced a peaceful memorial activity. The procession made its way along Kenyatta Avenue with a slow, measured pace of a group that understood the moment it was in. These were not protesters in the conventional sense. They were the bereaved, parents, siblings, partners, friends of the dead, walking with wreaths through the capital of the country that killed their loved ones and has spent 2 years avoiding accountability for it.
Mimi ni mama Kennedy Onyango. Kennedy Onyango alikuwa na miaka 12. Mimi ama sisi tunataka justice, tafadhali Mr. President. Nataka justice. Nataka kuona serikali aliyeua mtoto wangu. Angalau nitamsamehe. Naomba serikali uko na mkono. Ingekuwa ni mtoto wangu ameandika kitu mbaya kukuhusu, ningesaa mchukua na angesaa tia sheria. Lakini ni aliwawa na mimi ni mtu wa chini na sina cha kufanya. Niko tu na siku ya kumkumbuka kama leo. Tafadhali leo tuache na amani, tukumbuke watoto wetu. Lakini yenye nataka justice. Nataka kuona huyo mtu. Hata sitasema afungwe afanywe nini, lakini nataka kumuona. Tafadhali. Leo tafadhali usitupee Teargas ile tulikula last year. Tafadhali. Hii age yetu sio ya kukimbia na kurukaruka kwa barabara. Hapa sijakuja kuruka na sijakuja, niko na uchungu. Tafadhali.
Mama Harrison kijana mwenye aliuliwa nje ya parliament. Kwa leo hii mimi nilikuwa nataka kuambia government, we just want justice from the government, above all accountability. So my son was killed today outside parliament. I came to honor my son. So nataka kuambia government, leo last time walitukataza, leo nataka tuende tuweke maua pamoja na viongozi wetu wa hii nini. Asanteni.
Naitwa Edith Wanjiko Kamau, mtoto wangu anaitwa Ibrahim Kamau Wanjiko, 19 years old, aliuliwa hapo nje ya parliament. Kitu mimi ningeomba tu serikali, polisi wote wenye waliua watoto, polisi wa uaji, mimi ningeomba wachukuliwe hatua. Ndio next time wasiendelee kuua, sababu since 2024 mpaka leo tuko 2026 kila maandamano wanaua. Sisi tunaomba tu justice, justice, justice.
Then they reached Parliament Roads and the march stopped. Police had barricaded the route. The procession came to a standstill and the group made a decision that will define the afternoon. They sat down, sitting right there on the Parliament Road in the shadow of the institution whose steps they had come to honor the dead at. The message was not ambiguous. They were not leaving. They were not dispersing. They were not turning back after walking all this way for all this purpose. They will wait until security officers gave them a clear answer. Would they be allowed to access the parliamentary precincts to lay their wreaths or not? It was a simple question. It deserved a simple answer. Instead, what came next was teargas. Police fired teargas into the procession as the group neared Uhuru Highway, close to the former Intercontinental Hotel. In the chaos that followed, a significant moment played out that summarizes the several nature of this day entirely. The former Chief Justice David Maraga, who had joined the march, was whisked away by those around him after police ordered the protesters to disperse. David Maraga, the man who presided over Kenya's Supreme Court, who in 2017 nullified the presidential election in a ruling that announced to the world that Kenya's judiciary could stand independent of political pressure, was being hurried away from teargas on a Nairobi street because he had tried to accompany families of protest victims to lay wreaths in parliament. While all this was happening, the sitting, the teargas, the dispersal orders, Maraga being hustled to safety, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Gilbert Masengeli, was at a microphone explaining to the press that there were no roadblocks. He said the checkpoints set up across the city were screening operations designed to identify and stop what he called goons and individuals carrying dangerous weapons. He was clear about who was being targeted. There are no restrictions. We are not stopping anyone. Only those with bad intentions intending to destroy property will be arrested, Masengeli said.
Ndio tunasema hivi hapo sheria itampata mwenyewe. Demonstration tunashukuru kwa sababu sheria inasema wewe useme unataka kudemonstrate. Unataka kudemonstrate kwa sababu hii. Na leo tumejua kwa sababu walikusema. Hatuna neno. Send waende na wana haki ya kufanya. Ndio tutawalinda. Na wewe sikuna ukitaka bandi ya polisi wape itawasindikisha na watakaa. Kuna vizuizi. Jambo tu ni kwamba ile kitu inaelekea ni kuhakikisha wale wanaandamana wanalindwa mzuri, wale wanania mbaya hawaingiani na wao. Ndio sababu unaona maybe ukiona gari inasimamishwa na kuangaliwa, wanataka kuona wambeba silaha, wambeba kitu mbaya ama wako na watu kadi. Hiyo tu na ni kazi ya polisi ya kawaida. Hatuna jambo lingine ndugu. Nawashukuru sana. Nawapenda na Mungu awalinde.
The families carrying wreaths on Parliament Road will presumably be interested to know whether the Deputy IG considered them goons, whether the former Chief Justice walking beside them had bad intentions, and whether wanting to lay flowers at Parliament for the dead constitutes the kind of dangerous behavior that requires tear gas and armored trucks. There is a specific kind of insult embedded in that press briefing. It is the insult of being told what you are seeing is not what you are seeing. People who live in Githurai and were turned back on Thika Road in the morning were told there were no restrictions. Commuters who could not board a matatu into the CBD were told no one was being stopped. Families who are tear gassed on their way to lay wreaths were told only those with bad intentions will be arrested. The distance between what Masengeli said and what was happening on the ground was not a gap in communication. It was a policy, a deliberate choice to manage the narrative while managing the crowd. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Reader, Kering Tibet.